Charles Jenkins is a famous gospel musician, composer, and pastor known for his stirring songs and influential ministry leadership. Born in the U.S. on December 1975, Jenkins has made a significant impact on the Christian faith community and the gospel music industry. Jenkins' life story is an inspiration and a testament to perseverance, beginning with his spiritually based childhood and continuing through his success as a gospel artist and pastor. His desire to utilize his skills to inspire and uplift others is a reflection of his faith-based upbringing. Music and worship were more than just pastimes for him, they were his life. Charles Jenkins, in answer to the calling that would establish him as a major figure in gospel music and church leadership, attended university to major in theology. Among the nation's most esteemed theological institutions, he attended Chicago, Illinois' Moody Bible Institute. With the knowledge he gained from this education, Charles Jenkins, who served as the exceptional senior pastor of Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church in Chicago from 2000 to 2019, is renowned for his solid theological foundation and the expertise required for pastoral leadership. The church's membership and community outreach both increased dramatically under his leadership. The illustrious Reverend Clay Evans Jenkins succeeded a beloved founding pastor, but the church's legacy was not only preserved, but expanded tremendously under Jenkins's direction, vision, and devotion. Reverend Clay Evans Jenkins wasn't your average pastor. He was the visionary behind Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, so stepping into his shoes was an easy task. The dynamic preaching, civil rights activism, and influence of Reverend Evans made him a famous and esteemed member of the Chicago faith community. The church he established bears his unmistakable imprint. It would be difficult for anyone to follow in his spiritually inspired footsteps thanks to his magnetic presence, strong leadership, and solid foundation. Jenkins assumed leadership of a healthy church in 2000 when he was appointed senior pastor. Charles Jenkins had a tall order as the new pastor of Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church. The congregation was fiercely loyal to Reverend Evans. Recognizing the enormous influence of his predecessor, he accomplished this with modesty and a focused vision for his own leadership career. As the new representative of Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, he was successful in large part because he could honor the church's history while also planning for its future. During Jenkins's tenure as pastor, the church experienced unprecedented growth. Expansion, the increase in church members, was one of his crowning achievements. Churchgoers were drawn in by the welcoming environment, engaging services, and beneficial outreach programs. Another major draw was Jenkins' charismatic preaching style, which allowed him to relate to listeners from various walks of life. Played a crucial role in attracting new members to the church. Food, clothes, school supplies, and job training were all distributed through Jenkins's programs to the needy. The goal of these initiatives was to empower individuals and families through the proclamation of God's love and the provision of tangible assistance. By tending to the community's material and spiritual needs, Jenkins solidified the church's position as a safe haven during trying times. The activism of Reverend Clay Evans, whose work he admired, shaped his views on social justice and the importance of community service. By advocating for equality, justice, and positive change in Chicago, Jenkins carried on this tradition. He joined other city leaders in their fight to address systemic issues that disproportionately affect the city's poor and powerless, demonstrating leadership beyond the pulpit. In his ministry, Charles Jenkins was not hesitant to try new things. He took advantage of new technology and innovative strategies to reach a larger audience, anticipating that church involvement would change in the digital age. For instance, he communicated with both churchgoers and non-churchgoers through digital means such as social media and live streaming services. The work of Charles Jenkins extends beyond just his mark in his dual roles as a gospel music industry heavyweight and pastor. His profound devotion to worship and profound message moved people all over the globe, so he effortlessly transitioned from leading a church to overseeing gospel music. Charles Jenkins officially entered the gospel music industry in 2012 with the release of his debut album, The Best of Both Worlds. As the album's title suggested, Jenkins' pastoral leadership and music were his life's work, and he aspired to fuse contemporary gospel with more traditional aspects. Roots, his album, demonstrated his ability to reach a diverse audience while remaining faithful to his faith. It was a daring declaration of his versatility as a pastor and an artist. Its innovative blend of gospel's traditional components with contemporary influences earned it high praise from critics. Beyond its musical merits, The Best of Both Worlds served as an effective ministry. This album was a hit with gospel music veterans and new worshipers alike thanks to Jenkins's profound theological observations and stirring lyrics, which were interwoven throughout. The intention behind this song, which serves as the lead single from Jenkins's debut album Awesome, was to inspire and draw listeners closer to their faith. The gospel music community went wild for it after hearing the powerful yet simple lyrics that extol God's greatness and faithfulness. Thanks to its infectious arrangement and uplifting melody, Awesome became a smashing success right away. A contemporary gospel classic, the song's message of thanksgiving resonated with Christian communities. No one on the Billboard gospel music charts, Awesome did more than simply win over listeners' hearts. It dominated the charts. Not only did it do well in the gospel community, but it also became popular in Christian music circles and kept getting played frequently. Acknowledgement. Gospel radio stations, worship teams, and churches nationwide loved the song for its universal appeal and emphasis on God's attributes. Not only did Awesome do well on the charts, but it also garnered Charles Jenkins a slew of accolades and recognition. Several award shows acknowledged the song's influence on the gospel music industry, and Jenkins was honored with multiple honors for the talents of Jenkins as a gospel music innovator, singer, and songwriter were honored with these accolades. Jenkins' musical and spiritual leadership abilities were on full display in his songs, which had the power to unite worshipers in praise and strike a chord with listeners' spiritual experiences. Jenkins kept making music that people could relate to after the success of Awesome, his debut album. While considering these matters, he continued to release albums such as Any Given Sunday, 2015, Things 2016, featuring singles like War and Grace, demonstrated Jenkins's versatility as a performer by fusing contemporary sounds with traditional gospel components while maintaining a heavy emphasis on messages of hope, faith, and empowerment. One more potent anthem, War, became a rallying cry for those fighting the good fight. Like Awesome, this song demonstrates that Jenkins is capable of creating music that does more than just provide entertainment. It also encourages and uplifts listeners with its message of spiritual struggle and triumph. His steady stream of spiritually and musically captivating songs earned him a devoted fan following and cemented his position in the gospel music industry. The influence of Charles Jenkins on gospel music extends far beyond his hit songs. It is in his capacity to utilize music as a medium for ministry and fellowship that his influence is most felt. As a pastor, his perspective on gospel music has never been detached. He does not view it merely as a form of entertainment. As an act of worship and a medium for the proclamation of God's love and grace, Jenkins writes songs with the intention of strengthening believers' faith, encouraging their spiritual development, and providing solace to individuals going through tough times. The gospel music world will never be the same thanks to Charles Jenkins. He is devoted to ministry and has a gift for penning songs that resonate with Christians. In the realm of contemporary gospel, Jenkins has emerged as a prominent figure. Through his celebrity, he has served as a role model for many and a sounding board for aspiring musicians. Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church has greatly benefited from Pastor Charles Jenkins' guidance and the gospel music he has composed. there have been many difficulties and personal issues for him as well. After the death of a well-known pastor, Charles Jenkins assumed the role of senior pastor at Chicago's Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church. He faced numerous challenges in this role, including maintaining a strong spiritual focus, a prosperous career, and a healthy work-life balance. After the renowned pastor passed away, he had the difficult task of becoming senior pastor. A revered leader, civil rights advocate, and spiritual guru to many, Reverend Clay Evans founded the church in 1951. His leadership and impact were deeply felt in the community and church, earning him great respect and leaving a gap that was difficult to fill. Following in Evans's footsteps was no easy task for Jenkins, who became senior pastor in the year 2000. The assumption of leadership following Reverend Evans' departure was more than simply a change of position. It was also an opportunity to pay tribute to the church's illustrious past and carry on the legacy of a man who had molded its character for many years. Many in the congregation had strong personal ties to Reverend Evans, so there was a lot of pressure on Jenkins to live up to their expectations. The difficulty lay in reconciling Reverend Evans's established practices with his own goals for the church's development. Future Jenkins understood the significance of paying tribute to the past while simultaneously acknowledging the necessity for the church to evolve in order to maintain its relevance in the contemporary era. Leading a congregation through a period of transition while maintaining his fame in the music industry and the ministry was a balancing act that demanded wisdom, humility, and a clear sense of purpose from him. Many have voiced their disapproval of Charles Jenkins. Jenkins has had to navigate the challenges of being both a spiritual leader and a gospel artist, both of which put him in the spotlight and subject him to high expectations and pressures. Jenkins has had to manage the unavoidable scrutiny of the public on both his private and public life due to his position as a pastor. The public could see every move Pastor Jenkins made, even his. Jenkins launched new initiatives and increased outreach at Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church in an attempt to modernize the church. Some insiders and outsiders were wary of the church straying too far from its traditional beliefs because of these reforms, especially when members are strongly attached to long-standing traditions and practices. Leading a church through transitions is often met with criticism. Additionally, Jenkins updated the church's. Not everyone was on board with the changes he made to the church's worship and service structure. Some were worried that the changes might dilute the church's identity. Jenkins had to be diplomatic and considerate in his dealings with these opposing viewpoints. He was also committed to doing his best to respect the church's heritage while being open to fresh perspectives. The private life of Charles Jenkins has also been scrutinized. People looked to him as a pastor for moral guidance and expected him to be more upstanding than other public personalities, even when it came to his personal life. As a spiritual leader, people seldom take an interest in your private life. Like many leaders, Jenkins had to put in a lot of time and effort to maintain a good work-life balance while being closely observed by both his congregation and the media. The media has a knack for magnifying and criticizing even the smallest of errors or scandals. It was difficult for him to display vulnerability or acknowledge the universal struggles because of the public's fixation on his personal life, which put pressure on him to meet the expectations expected of a man in his position. In spite of the challenges posed by public scrutiny, Pastor Charles Jenkins has repeatedly demonstrated the virtue of vulnerability. Jenkins has a history of choosing humility and a focus on his calling to serve God and his community when faced with criticism. He has also acknowledged that criticism is an inevitable component of being a public leader and has been forthright about how difficult it is. Putting his critics in their place has been one of Jenkins's most effective strategies. He has resolved to refrain from public arguments and defensiveness and instead devote himself wholeheartedly to his ministry and musical endeavors. Jenkins has demonstrated that his purpose is unaffected by the opinions of others or the demands of the present, by remaining faithful to his calling and objectives. In addition to the demands of public life, Jenkins has also had to cope with the difficulties of juggling his own personal and family responsibilities. Even though Jenkins' personal struggles as a husband, father, pastor, musician, and public figure are mostly unreported, he has surely faced tests of faith and strength throughout his life. Maintaining a healthy equilibrium between his personal and professional responsibilities has been a major challenge for Pastor Charles Jenkins. Jenkins had to juggle a family life and a demanding job. During his nearly 20 years as senior pastor at Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, he oversaw a sizable congregation, spearheaded various community outreach initiatives, and encouraged the spiritual development of his congregation members. Jenkins also rose to prominence in the gospel music industry during this period, thanks to singles such as Awesome and War Required. A great deal of his time was required for the creation, promotion, and performance of his music. His time and energy were greatly taxed trying to juggle these two massive responsibilities. Jenkins found it most challenging to balance his many professional responsibilities with spending time with his family. You don't get much downtime when you're a musician and a pastor because of all the traveling and long hours. Members of a spiritual community look on their leaders for constant solace, guidance, and support. When you're in the public eye, everyone is curious about your every move, even your loved ones. Since Charles Jenkins was a gospel singer and pastor, his family's personal lives were constantly under scrutiny. The scrutiny that accompanied his prominent position occasionally placed an excessive amount of pressure on his loved ones to meet the lofty expectations that others had of him as a religious leader. Ordinarily, people look on a pastor's family to Members of spiritual leaders' families may find it challenging to maintain unattainable levels of morality and religion. Their humanity and the common challenges that every family encounters are frequently ignored by these standards. Because everyone is looking at their every move and decision through a different prism, the family may feel uneasy and stressed out by the public scrutiny. Jenkins has likely had to shield his family from this type of public scrutiny and make sure they can live their lives unencumbered by constant judgment because they are well known. Although details regarding Jenkins's private and familial hardships are not generally known, Jenkins, a leader who has spoken out about the importance of faith, has clearly had to draw strength from his faith to balance the demands of his career with the needs of his family. When Jenkins is going through tough times in his life, he likely finds solace and guidance in his spiritual beliefs. Not only does his religion uphold his ministry and musical endeavors, but it also influences his approach to resolving conflicts. Jenkins's resilience in the face of adversity is a testament to his dedication to personal development and progress. He has always aspired to improve himself as a leader, spouse, and parent. Being a leader, in his view, entails more than just making grand pronouncements. It also involves modeling for his loved ones and the people he serves the humility, openness, and vulnerability that are necessary for overcoming adversity and growing as individuals. The difficult decision to resign as senior pastor was made by Pastor Charles Jenkins in 2019. Almost 20 years had passed since Jenkins took over as pastor of Chicago's flourishing Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church. The church and its members went through a period of intense emotion and hardship during this major transition, which marked a turning point in Jenkins's career. Jenkins, after seeing his community flourish under his guidance, had to make the difficult decision to resign as spiritual leader. It was a difficult decision for Charles Jenkins to resign as senior pastor of Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church. A combination of private, public, and spiritual considerations formed its basis. Jenkins, who had been pastoring for nearly 20 years, decided to take a break to focus on his music and other ministry endeavors. Jenkins also felt the need to step down because he knew the church needed new leadership to keep it growing and changing. He was aware that the key to an institution's success was often its ability to welcome and accommodate diverse viewpoints and ideas. He decided to depart because he thought that The Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church is in need of a fresh, visionary leader to take it to the next level. Jenkins had to make the tough choice to quit a job he had worked for the better part of his life doing because he had grown close to the people he knew through his church and his friends. It was a tough decision for him to make because of his relationships with the members of the congregation and the spiritual growth he had guided them through. But he demonstrated humility and leadership qualities by making this choice. He knew that stepping aside is sometimes necessary for the greater good of the community. The passing of Pastor Charles Jenkins had a profound impact on Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church. Jenkins guided the congregation through a period of profound spiritual transformation, during which it became a shining example of faith in the fight for social justice and community service in Chicago. Among Jenkins's many legacies at the church was Charles Jenkins began a new chapter in his life, professionally and personally, when he left Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church after years of balancing his job as a pastor with his career in gospel music. He was devoted to innovative ministry, which sought to empower the youth of today and tomorrow, while also attending to the community's needs through a number of social programs. Because of this, he was able to devote more time to his musical interests and to exploring career opportunities. Because of his decision, he was able to pursue interests outside of traditional ministry work and exercise his creativity. As a result of the shift, Jenkins was finally able to devote the time and energy that had been previously consumed by his family. Being a pastor, musician, and public figure meant that Jenkins had to find a way to balance his time and focus between his work and his loved ones. By stepping down from his position as pastor, he was able to realign his priorities and spend more time with his loved ones, taking care of himself, his family, and his spouse. Faith can transform individuals, as Jenkins' story demonstrates. He proved that difficulties are inevitable, but that overcoming them is the path to personal development, resilience, and creativity. His story exemplifies how relying on faith and community can bring about personal and spiritual growth in the face of adversity.